We've got our next guest on the phone lines here. It'll be a true pleasure to get this gentleman on. Somebody with a very unique career, somebody who's had a career that has paralleled really the growth of the sports talk radio industry in terms of when he came into the business to what it's become today, to going to the next frontier. Not merely having his own show on Sirius, which would be cool enough, but a channel branded in his image, Mad Dog Radio on satellite Sirius Radio. And I could only be speaking of the one and only Chris Mad Dog Russo. Chris, it's a pleasure to have you on the show tonight. How are you, sir?
Hey, buddy. How are you today? Good. Thanks for the nice introduction there. That was nice of you to do that.
Oh, I'm doing fine, sir. How are you?
Okay, doing well. What's happening? What do you got? Good to be on here.
Well, I tell you what, let me start. I'm sure you've been hearing this a lot lately, but congratulations. I know that the team that you are a foremost fan of in life, the San Francisco Giants, winning the World Series. As a lifelong fan of all the Cleveland sports franchises, I can only guess how the feeling goes, but why don't you describe it?
Well, it was tremendous, and, the fact that it was a surprise makes it a lot better. I mean, there was not a lot of expectations on the team. They were 6.5 out in late August, and obviously, in trouble with the Padres, and certainly in trouble when they went up against the Braves down again. In trouble in Game 3, and big underdogs against the Phillies. A lot of people thought they lost, that they would lose at Texas. So the idea that it was a tremendous surprise makes it all the more worthwhile, throwing the fact that they had about 3 or 4 really dramatic wins. They won with dominating pitching, didn't spend an incredible amount of money on free agency. As good as it gets if you're a Giant fan.
Well, absolutely. I mean, because as you say, it wasn't something that really looked to be in the cards through the course of the entire season, just having to battle off San Diego right through the end of the season here. Having said that, and I certainly don't want to be a buzzkill here in the moment of glory, but it's one of these things where when you look at this core, this very enviable nucleus that's there, I mean, it's going to be a real letdown if the team can't do it again at some point in the next couple of years, right? I mean, that's a nucleus that any other general manager in baseball would kill for. You're going to have some bad money coming off the books to get some more hitting. Should be primed to do it at least 1 or 2 more times.
It's a boy, great job. The Giants, they got that pitching organized. They will have a little advantage because Aaron Rowan, thank God, won't be there forever. Zito, thank God, won't be there forever. So they will have some opportunities. You can't expect them to repeat. But they do have Posey. They do have 4 or 5 pitchers. They got a good closer. I'm assuming that Sandoval will bounce back and play a little better. So I think the Giants will be a baseball team for the next 5 to 6 years, and maybe in one of those years they can get a little something together here and win another one. Remember, we thought that about the Braves, and the Braves only won 1. So, I mean, you can never assume that you are going to win another championship, but they will have the opportunities. Throw enough resumes out the wall, and a couple of those will stick.
Yeah, point very well taken. They did win a couple of pennants in addition to that, and of course, the one World Series coming at the expense of my Cleveland Indians, predictably.
Right.
But the Braves are kind of an interesting parallel there, Chris. No question about it. Something I'd like to ask you about, since again you made your bones 2 decades plus at the top of New York sports radio. I know you're very familiar with the way of thinking of the fans coming off of a game like last night. It's obviously one of the biggest stories in sports right now. It's what happened with the Jets and the Patriots, and even leading into that game, what the expectations were for a team like the Jets. Really, your prototypical all-star team in a year without a salary cap. Just as much as they've spent on superstar players. Losing to a team that's really gone back to its blue-collar roots, especially defensively, like the Patriots, a team that's really devoid of some of the star talent they've had in recent years. Is that the kind of thing that's just going to make it that much worse and more irritating for the New York fans to deal with, having a beatdown like that last night?
I'm not too sure if the makeup of the team's got anything to do with it. I think it's the overall 2 franchises, the fact that the Patriots have won 3 championships, the fact that Jets haven't won so long since '69, and Belichick and everything else, and the proximity of the rivalry and what have you. I was surprised. I thought the Jets would. I think we all were. I thought the Jets would be very competitive in the game. I thought they'd have a chance. I kind of bought into the karma scenario based on the Giants in baseball. I kind of thought it was left off with the Jets with the way they had won 3 games here in the last month or so with Detroit, Cleveland, and I thought the Jets have played well last night. So the bottom line is that Sanchez is still prone to have those kind of games, and their defense can't generate a pass rush. I mean, the bottom line is their defense does not go after the quarterback well enough, and Brady right now is very hungry to win another one. He's very into it. He's bounced back from that injury from 2 years ago. He had a very bad loss last year to postseason. He's very, very, very committed to win with this team. And, right now the Patriots are probably going to get back to a Super Bowl. I do not see them losing a home playoff game like last year. They're going to get a bye. I don't think the Jets will beat them up there in Foxborough in January. So, last night was everything. The Jets will, when your goal is going and winning a Super Bowl, you fall short, as the Jets will probably fall short, it will be viewed as a disappointing season, which is not fair. That's where you are right now, Jets.
But here's the thing. Ultimately, everything's been geared towards win now. They've embraced that, especially with everything with Hard Knocks. They've brought the expectations on themselves and willfully ratcheted it up about as high as it can go. And yet, you look at the makeup of this team, they're built to win now, except you have to like their quarterback over the long haul, Mark Sanchez, but you look at somebody like Matt Ryan with just one more year of pro experience under his belt, how much more advanced he seems than Sanchez now. Is that contradiction the thing that's likely to do them in the end, that they're built to win now everywhere except quarterback?
Well, that's a good point. Now, remember, Ryan played a lot more college games than Sanchez did.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan has never won a playoff game, and Sanchez won 2 last year. So you got to keep that in mind. I mean, listen, I think Sanchez is going to be a winning player. I think he'll be a very successful quarterback. But you're right, the team is kind of not going to be the same team on the road. The guys, as we know, with Tomlinson and obviously Santonio Holmes and folks like that. And some of those guys on defense too. But the Jets will build around Revis. They build around an offensive line. They're built around the quarterback. They probably hope the running back gets a little better. Ryan's here for the long haul. The Jets are a good team. I mean, the Jets are going to be a good team for a period of years here, but it's very hard to win championships in the NFL. The Patriots have had we all know, a tremendous ability to do so. Not that easy. And then the Jets are going to have to keep on knocking at the door and make postseasons and hope the ball breaks their way. Look, for all the greatness of Manning, he's won one championship. For all the greatness of Warner, he won one championship. It's Brady's won the 3, and obviously Roethlisberger won 2. It's not that easy to win these championships. I mean, and the Patriots are staring at them in their division, which makes it harder. And Brady's not old, and Belichick's not slowing down, which also makes it harder. But the Jets will have their chances. I don't think that chance will be this year, but the Jets will have their chances. I mean, the team is, Tannenbaum's good, Revis. Obviously some situation. They need some help along. I don't know if Holmes is going to be there forever. The Jets are. Keller's good. And I got Keller. They're going to be a good football team. Will they be a great team this year? They will not. They will not win it this year. But they'll have their runs here down the road with this team.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case because they're not going to dismantle the team clearly after this year is done. I'd like to take a look here, just kind of trace through with you, Chris. I mentioned in the introduction here about how your career really kind of paralleled the growth of sports talk radio from the late 1980s onward here. As you got the chance 2 years ago to make this big jump, talk about what was going through your mind at the time based on everything from the decision to go there, to anchor a show on there, to get your own channel, what you wanted Mad Dog Radio to look and feel like. What were all the things that were going through your mind when you made this momentous decision?
Well, I just thought it was an opportunity that you can't pass up. When somebody offers you a channel, I think you got to take a run at it. I've been with Mike for such a long period of time. Maybe we both got a little stale. It was a chance that I wasn't going to get 3 or 4 years down the road. I think the fact that I didn't have to sit there and talk about the Yankees for 5 hours every day or the Mets for 5 hours every day, I think that was relatively appealing. I just thought at the time, I wasn't sure how the channel would operate. Channel's a lot harder than I thought. The show at times can be tricky as well because it's sort of a nomadic show because you don't have that home team, that home base to really help you. So sometimes, getting phone calls, generating a lot of things can be tricky. but I love the flexibility of it. I like the content of it. I like the fact I can do anything I want. I do think that I think the wave of the future is satellite radio. More cars will have it down the road. I think that with more entertainment options at each fingertips, satellite will be a lot more attractive. I mean, listen, in the last 2 weeks at Sirius, we got McCartney playing a concert for us at the Apollo Theater on Monday night just for the subscribers. We have Billy Joel in studio with Stern for an hour and a half playing piano, and Springsteen in studio for 2 hours talking or answering questions from calls. So, but hey, I don't know how you get any bigger than that. As far as my job is concerned, my job is to go out there and give the fans an alternative to what they normally hear from a local standpoint. Now, sometimes you like the local radio because it gives you, like today, for instance, you could have done 3,000, you could have done 20 hours on the Jets, and I did an hour and a half. So sometimes you miss that when you don't have that common denominator as a team. But overall, I think, national radio is different than local radio. You got to keep that in mind. You got to placate the fan in other parts of the country, and sometimes that fan wants to just hear, what his teams are doing, and I don't do that all the time, so that's very tricky. But I think overall I made the right decision. I think overall, the fact the Giants won, I can do it 5 hours a day. I think overall I made the right call. I've enjoyed it. The flexibility of it's fun. I mean, again, the channel's hard. You got to hire people. I mean, you got to be strict with them. You got to make sure they're on their key. It's not that easy. It's a lot of responsibility. But I mean, I think overall I made the right call. Whether I'd make this call 5 years from now, I'm not so sure. But at the time when I made it, 48 years of age, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's been very interesting to see everything play out, both with your show and the formation of the channel as a whole. Chris, before we wrap up here, just like to go off the beaten path for a second here, as we like to do from time to time with our guests. We like to talk about anything interesting that they know, not necessarily just sports. We had the occasion last week when we took a break away from sports briefly to talk to Rick Springfield. I put the question to him as a native of Australia. I know that you had studied in Australia. I've always been fascinated by it. I've never been there, but I've always been fascinated by it. He kind of agreed with my premise that really their people and our people kind of have a lot in common because we don't have a lot of the formality of the older cultures of Europe and Asia. I almost think of them as almost kind of like a cousin type of culture. Is that something that you read from having been over there? Did they really seem similar to us in a lot of ways?
That's a very good question. I haven't been there. I lived there for a year in 1980. That's 30 years ago. I haven't been there since. Australia has always had a bit of an inferiority complex, the citizens there. Number one, they're on the other corner of the world, so they kind of feel that they're not part of the mainstream. Number two, their foundation, their history, their background is a penal colony, so they kind of feel, all their ancestors are ex-prisoners from Great Britain. And so as a result of that creates an inferiority complex. But they are the most decent, down-to-earth people you ever meet. They love Americans. They would take their shirts off their backs for Americans. They love sports like we do. They like to have fun, drink beer, party like we do. They're a little male chauvinistic. They are a little male chauvinistic. When I was there, they were the third largest beer-consuming country in the world. They're sort of a cross between South Africa, Great Britain, and the United States. It's a very interesting country. Don't forget, 85% of that country is an arid region. You go 30 miles west of Sydney, you're in the middle of the outback. Most of the cities are most of the populations in Perth, Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne, Darwin. It's a very interesting place. Weather's always good. It's very good. Sydney's a lot like London. I mean, Sydney's got a lot of London to it. It's much newer than London, obviously. It's right on the harbor, so it's a beautiful place, but a little bit more old-fashioned. Great place to go. I have not been there in 30 years. I should make another trip there. Well, you can't go there for 2 weeks. I mean, the place you got to visit for a month. Time difference, 14 hours. It's not you can't go there for 2 weeks. I mean, I was there for a 7-month period, so it's a little different for me. But it's a wonderful place, and very similar to America in a lot of cases. Loving sports, very chauvinistic, very male-oriented, and fun-loving is the best way to explain it.
Well, that's a great answer, Chris. Thank you. You're really stoking my desire to go there someday. It does seem like a fascinating place. But again, just a pleasure to have you on here tonight and talk about everything going on and just the success of Mad Dog Radio. We wish more of that to you, sir. More success on Sirius. A pleasure to have you on. We'd love to have you back sometime. Thank you so much, Chris.
Hey, great to be here. Keep it up. Keep on doing good radio work. That was a good interview you did. Good job.
Thank you very much, sir. Chris Mad Dog Russo, everyone, from Sirius
just got put over
Mad
by
Dog
the Mad
Radio.
Dog.
That was...
You got put over by the Mad Dog.
Wow.
By the way, I enjoyed the shot. Tell us what it's like to win a championship, because we here in Cleveland have no clue.
You know what? I can't stop being self-loathing even for a second there.
Yeah.
That's what people come to expect from me. All right. Well, while I gather my wits off air after getting put over by Mad Dog Russo, we'll take a quick break here.